It's like a piece of art made by nature. The immensity of what's down there. Stalactites and stalagmites that hang down from the ceiling that take hundreds of years to form. Seeing something that's so very unlike the rest of our lives, things that really capture the imagination, the lure of the unknown. Intrigue you into some sort of world that's almost unlike anything else. It's quite an adventure to be able to explore them. My name is Marissa Shore. I am a geologist, and I am particularly interested in the geology of caves and karst areas. So the most common type of cave you're going to find are limestone caves, especially here in kind of the central United States in Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana. And limestone is a type of rock that forms usually in a shallow ocean water. So think of kind of like a coral reef, and those animals die and basically pile up to make this big pile of rock. Essentially, after millions of years, the rock it'll harden, and at some point it'll kind of end up being close to the surface because everything else on top of it will have eroded away. And when rainwater hits the limestone that's near the surface, it starts to dissolve it. So over time, as more and more water comes down, it'll make a sinkhole, and the water continues down. It'll follow cracks in the rock, and over time it'll make big passages. It'll dissolve out airspace. And you can get different types of cave passages. So the one I was just talking about, usually those are kind of big, wide sort of passages, but sometimes water comes in really quickly from the surface, and you'll get what's called a dome. So the water comes in like a waterfall from the top of the passage and cuts down really quickly. Usually these are kind of big shafts. And a lot of people who like to go caving will put a rope in the shaft and they'll climb it. Those are excellent places to see the different rock layers in the cave. So from those different layers, we can tell what the environment was like millions of years ago. There's a lot that caves can tell us about science, about our natural world. Biology is one of the big fields in sort of cave science. There's very unique animals that live in the caves. There's hydrology, so learning where the water goes, how it flows. There are a bunch of people who study archaeology and paleontology, so at least here at Mammoth Cave, there's been a long history of human use of the cave. There are also certain parts of the cave where there are younger fossils that are preserved in the cave sediments. Part of our expedition, we went down into a part of Mammoth Cave called Roaring River. And down in that cave, we are in a rock formation called the St. Louis limestone. And that limestone has a bunch of different fossils in it, some of them of fossil sharks that lived over 300 million years ago. And some of these fossils that have already been discovered are either new for the area or completely brand new to science. No one has ever seen these. In order to get to the places where these fossils had been documented, we needed to use boats. So we hiked down there and we had inflatable kayaks, which we inflated in the cave and carried over to the river. Typically, during the flood, of course, the water level is going to be very high, but usually afterwards, it's been weeks, the water level will return to normal. But this time we noticed that the water level had not returned to normal. We noticed that it was a lot higher than it normally is. That does indicate to us that there has been some sort of change in the system. So there are a lot of challenges to caving, but it seems that most of the cavers I know, at least, are always up for a challenge. You can be cold and wet. Sometimes you're walking through stream passages. Sometimes you have to swim in caves. There's some of the dangers of caving, I suppose, are lots of people worry about rock fall. It doesn't happen terribly often, but it can. But if you're doing it smart and you're doing it right, I guess, you're going with other people, you're kind of watching what you're doing, always being aware of your actions and your emotions and what's around you, then you can really do it safely as long as you have the right equipment. So always have a helmet and a light, always go with other people. It really brings you all together and you're kind of in it for the joy, the fun, the camaraderie, and it's true exploration. How often do we get to experience complete and total darkness, not a single bit of light?